I'm FIDE Master Alex, and in this video I'm going to use an over-the-board blitz game in order to show you a couple of main ideas behind the Semi-Slav setup. It is one of the basic pawn structures to understand and an important step towards getting to know chess strategy in general. White pieces are led by myself against a 1900 FIDE rated opponent. The game started as a regular Queen's Gambit declined, but quickly after it transposed into the so-called Semi-Slav defense. At this point, black could have gone into the favorable version of the Stonewall Dutch, since white has e3 instead of the typical setup including kingside fianchetto. Now black is wasting a move for no reason. Nothing was coming to g5, while there is no point in playing a waiting move. White's main plan here is to gain space by pushing e4, and we don't need a queen placed on e2 for that to happen. On the other side, well, she would anyway go to e2 after e4. I decided to hide my plan and play e4 on the next move. Black's best plan is d takes e or d takes c4 and then e5 or c5 pawn break in order to gain space and eventually free up their c8 bishop. The other one involves trading on c4 and then b5, followed by a6, c5 and bishop b7, but it works better when conducted before white advances e4. Black may be thinking of some kind of activity along b8 h2 diagonal, but actually it only reveals their misunderstanding of this type of middle game. Their first task is to finish development of their pieces, get some space, center control, and only then the conditions may be there to even consider creating an attack against white king. b3 looks like a move one plays because that's the only way. Going deeper into it, you start to see many layers behind the surface. That bishop makes more difficult for black to get more space by advancing e5, and if c5 is ever played, it would drastically increase the activity of the bishop on b2. Taking with the bishop is also fine, but this way white is interested in provoking knight f6, means less support for the typical plans of black, e5 or c5. Queen e3 is also good, since the dark square bishop is going to b2 and knight g4 is no threat. And this knight g4 move is a weird solo rider. In those positions, the best choice is to just continue with your own things, like bishop b2, then rook a d1, and just wait for black to admit their mistake and move their knight back to f6, without even being attacked. And there is no reason to waste all move to help the opponent by kicking it away. However, I decided to be friendly at this point. Black's best is to continue trying to free up their pieces with a typical pawn advance into the center. The c5 can be supported by moving b6, but black continues to play their meaningless moves, queen d6. Many beginners would be thinking of how to overprotect their king, say by advancing the g-pawn. They would turn their opponent's bad queen d6 move into a good one by voluntarily weakening their king for no reason at all. White continues with the standard setup, which means placing one rook on the d and the other one on the e file, while the f3 knight goes to e5. An important part of the setup is pulling back the bishop to b1 for a couple of reasons. One is allowing the rook from d1 to support the d4 pawn. Two, allowing the same rook to be lifted to d3 and swing over to the king side. And three, allowing the queen to go in front of the bishop and create a battery. And this is another meaningless move. Again, I can't imagine a beginner being intimidated by the black's queen getting this far, but a master wouldn't care that much, knowing principles saying that one cannot really conduct a serious plan, having almost no space nor active pieces to join the attack. Queen back to d6. If she stays a bit longer on f4, it may get dangerous after knight e5, closing her way out. Black moves the queen again, trying to hide her from a possibility of white opening the center with the d5. Also, the queen on e7 is guarding the f6 knight, in case it gets taken by the b2 bishop, ever. Still, there is no real need to waste another move, and black should have gone for b6 instead. Knight e5 is completely automatic move. Better was queen c2, setting up d5, threatening mate on h7 after bishop takes f6. Black would have been in an extremely unpleasant situation. However, the attack comes with a price in view of helping black's light square bishop getting active. That's why I went on to play slower positional game with c4 c5 in mind, trying to keep black's light square bishop out of play. Knight h7 is trying to deal with the expected pressure along the b1 h7 diagonal by advancing f5. It comes with a huge weakening along the e file. That's black's best chance to survive. Rook d3 is always useful. Either it is going to help doubling on the d file if it gets open, or swing over to the king side threatening black king. f5 is expected, and it seems like white is winning the exchange with the knight g6. Now try to guess why that doesn't really work for white before it is played on the board. I was completely blind that there is an in-between move queen d6. And now if white takes the rook, queen h2 followed by queen h1 is checkmate. Then I played another ugly looking move, queen e5. Which is bad for so many reasons. One is that black can just move their queen away to d8 and my queen needs to go back exactly where she was before. And then it looks like a draw of her. Luckily for me, black took on e5, and after d takes c, white should be satisfied. Although the outpost e5 is no more, there is an open d file, then e6 weak pawn, the f4 square for the white's knight, and black's light square bishop is difficult to activate. Bishop a3 slightly improves a piece, again without relying on calculation but pure knowledge of the basic chess principles. In case you are tired or lazy to calculate, just follow basic chess strategy and you'll notice there is no need to work that hard when playing. No, I'm just fooling you. Hard work is always needed if you play someone of your or higher level. King f7 is expected as well as knight f4. That knight is on the perfect spot, since if black advances g5, we can get to h5 and possibly end up on f6. That's exactly what we see on the board before black does something really bad for them. Playing g4 is a symptom of the typical beginner's mindset. They like to think that if they advance a pawn, they are starting an attack. In fact, they are only weakening the same flank, because their pieces are stuck and inactive, and any kind of opening of the game is only in white's favor. Here white can just take and play rook g3, after which it is clear who is in commanding position on the king side and whose pieces and pawns are in danger. However, being lazy to think even 2 moves ahead, I played an intuitive move that keeps the structure as it is, going on with the strategy of restricting black's light square bishop. Finally, b6, and things are getting heated. If black manages to push c5, put their bishop on b7 and defend the d file, they're going to be at least okay. Bishop d6, trying to either create a dangerous passed pawn or get the rook to d6, putting pressure on the e6 weakness. Black pulls the bishop back, attacking h4. At first glance, g3 is a normal looking move, but it is a loss of a tempo, and now black has the best chance to finally give a new life to the light square bishop by playing c5. It is the only available moment, otherwise white is going to push c5 and stop it for good. Well, instead black messed up the move order and played bishop b7 first. But after white c5, the bishop is going nowhere. Now white again has control over the whole board, and only thing to fix is their b1 bishop. Bishop e7, rook ed1, knight f8, since that piece was not active at all, sitting in the corner. But it is leaving the f6 square for white's knight to occupy, although I thought it is more useful on f4 outpost, putting pressure on the e6 weakness. Black could have taken the c5 pawn here. It does weaken their pawn structure, but it is opening up possibilities for their bishop to get some roll from a6, threatening c5, c4. Instead, black made another trade offer, which I'm happy to accept. The reason is simple, I'm going to have much better pieces on the board, with 2 rooks dominating the only open file, and potentially much better bishop. Now that bishop being like this has been the main strategy of white in the middle game. Rook d7, trying to conquer the 7th rank, black is trying to keep it, and white puts more pressure with the other rook, targeting 2 structural weaknesses of black, e6 and c6. There is no easy way to get any of those pawns, but pressure is going to limit black's options to activate their pieces. Black finally took the c5 pawn, and now we want our bishop to be on d3 for 3 reasons. 1, it wants to prevent any kind of c5, c4. 2, the bishop wants to sit on c4 and put more pressure on the e6 weakness. And 3, it prevents black's bishop from activating via a6. Black is left without any useful move now, and we had h5, another pawn on the light square, which can only be good for white. However, after king f1, unfortunately black lost on time, and we cannot really see how the strategically winning endgame would have been converted. Or maybe it is better, because I can ask you to suggest the winning plan for white. Feel free to write it down in the comment section. Also, since you're still here, I'd assume you liked the video, and if you want me to make more of these, hit the like button and leave a feedback.